Hey guys, today's video is a little bit different as it has three main stages, and I'm going to show you the first one first. I just repeat the same stage with different colors, but then I'm also going to share my recipe for this batch with you. So I'm making 3 layers in one soap, and I'm doing 1 layer at a time. I really want those layers to be nice and flat. And I am working with an accelerating fragrance oil. You will see in just a minute that it is almost completely solid. So I am working at higher temperatures than normal as well. So that contributes to the acceleration, but definitely this fragrance oil, it accelerates. So I actually did a blend, and they're all from Midwest Fragrance Company. Several of them decelerate trace and several of them accelerate. So I guess the acceleration just won on this battle. But this is fully emulsified. I'm not worried about it separating or anything like that. This colorant is cocoa powder. So I used From the Earth colorants this time. I did not use synthetic micas. I really wanted to see if I could accomplish this look with some clays and things like that. So this one is the cocoa powder. It's not a clay, but the other 2 colorants are clays. So this one I used 3 teaspoons of cocoa powder to get this hue, and I really like the color. Like, I like the shade. I wouldn't change it at all. But if you are like, hey, I want to replicate this recipe, but I don't want it quite that dark, you can lower the cocoa powder. You don't have to use as much. Or, hey, I want it a little darker. I wouldn't go too much more than 3 teaspoons because that's quite a bit for this amount of soap. But I'm going to go into the recipe now. What I did was I did a small recipe. This is 13 ounces. And if you want to take a screenshot and actually copy this recipe, I am okay with that. That is why I'm sharing it. I want you to try it out. It is a coconut-free recipe. And you will notice I added sugar to the lye solution. That bit is going to be vital if you want to have a bubbly soap. Without the coconut oil really adds a lot of cleansing, but it also adds some bubble as well. Those are 2 different things. But without that in there, you're not going to have as bubbly a soap. And some people are really put off if you don't have bubble in your soap. That's like a given. Give us our bubbles. We want them. So if you want those bubbles, make sure you add some kind of sugar, whether that is a milk of some kind or honey. Honey can tend to get spotty and overheat. That's why I prefer granulated sugar. I've also used powdered sugar, brown sugar, whichever you prefer. Just make sure it goes with the design because there is going to be a white layer and you don't want it to leave spots in this particular design or it will kind of ruin the aesthetic. So like I said, go ahead, take a screenshot if this is something that interests you, try it out, and let me know what you think in the comments also if you do go ahead and make this recipe. I'm always interested to hear what other people think of particular recipes. This one I have used before. It does work. It's a great bar. I do have some folks that are coconut free in my life, so I try to have a different variety other than just Castile soaps. So this one is a really great recipe that I love. So go ahead and try it out. Back to the making. This is the second layer. So this is supposed to mimic a Neapolitan ice cream or a Neapolitan ice cream bar. And this is not original to me. I saw this on a Brambleberry kit and I just fell in love with it. I've seen lots of different renditions of this particular design, so I just want you to know right off the bat, this is nothing like if you're like, oh, she's so clever. No, it's not me. I didn't come up with this originally. I saw it and I wanted to try it. Okay, so this next layer, this is the white layer of the ice cream soap. And this one, I just use kaolin clay. It's just white clay. And my recipe does stay very white. So I may not even need this kaolin clay. I could probably do without it. But I like the way clay feels in a soap. So I really wanted to keep it in. If not for colorant, for feeling. So if you have dark olive oil, you're going to want to use a light olive oil. There are different kinds of olive oil, and when I first started making soap, I did not know this, and I was wondering why my soap was so dark, and a lot of it was the dark olive oil. So make sure you have a lightweight olive oil, that way it's not, or a light colored olive oil, so it's not, you know, darkening up your design. And here is the third batch. So I completely created 3 separate batches in one loaf mold. I did the lye solution separately. I did the fragrance oil separately. I measured them out 3 separate times. And because the fragrance oil accelerated, this process really wasn't very long. It really wasn't very long. Despite the fact that I made like 3 mini batches of soap, it didn't take that long because of the fragrance oil. So if you have a fragrance oil that decelerates, it's going to take longer, and you're going to want to make sure that bottom layer is set up before you put the next layer over it, or it's just going to puncture and you're not going to have those straight lines. But you can see already that brown layer was really solid and this pink layer is really solid. And I'm so sorry for that blob that fell. I did not see that blob fall as it fell. And you're going to see me smash the molds right into this blob. And I was thinking of like trying to edit it out, but look, it's going in. Ah! There's no going back now. There's just no going back. Some things, they're just there. So, yep. And then I wanted to have the top at least flat to start with. And then I'm going to texture it, but I wanted to make sure it was fairly even. Because sometimes little corners, you see the little corners, there's like little divots in there. I didn't want one bar to be slightly smaller than the other. I want them to be fairly even. And I am going to be cutting with a crinkle cutter. So that tends to be a little bit trickier for me anyways. I mean, there are people out there that they are like master crinkle cutters, but this is not me. I'm not great at freehand cutting. So I wanted to make sure each bar was going to be relatively even in size and shape. I do charge by weight, so I wanted to make sure each of them was similar in weight. And then I just didn't really have a top plan, but I didn't want to leave it just flat. I don't know. I just didn't want to do that. So I did a little swirly thing. But if I had not done this immediately, I would not have been able to accomplish a top design because it was setting up so quickly. And then here is a little fairy duster that is Sparkle Plenty from Mad Micas. That one I got 3 years ago, and it is still going strong. I tell you what, those fairy dusters, they are incredible. I love them. They just add a little bit of subtle sparkle to the top. And then these are sugar pearls. These I just got from Walmart in the baking aisle. So there it is. I really like the look. They look like baby fish eggs, kind of. Now you can't unsee it. Now you're just going to see fish eggs. But here is the saponified batch. It is ready to cut. This is probably about 5 hours after I poured it. It went through a very toasty gel phase. It was probably 112 degrees when I checked it, and immediately after pouring. So I knew it was going to be a pretty toasty. It was still rising in temperature. And I actually prefer gel phase because then I can cut sooner. And especially with this recipe, it has a lot of lard in it. And see the side of that, there were little flecks of brown. And if I had gone in and actually cleaned up the mold as I was making it, those wouldn't be there. It doesn't really bother me, but just for reference, if you're like, oh man, I really don't want a different color on the side of my bar, you can just clean it up as you are going, as you were making the soap, and you won't have that. And then with cutting these sugar pearls, I made sure to move any sugar pearls that were going to be cut, because if you drag that through the bar, see, I pushed down with this crinkle cutter, and if I push down on a sugar pearl, it's going to leave an indent in the entire bar. And not that that's a problem, it just ruins slightly the aesthetic, and I didn't really want to do that. So that's just a hot tip. If you are cutting with like botanicals on top or any addition to the top and you're freehand cutting it, try and make sure those items are out of the way, or turn your loaf on the side. And you will have a side crinkle rather than a vertical crinkle, but you know, that's okay. If you're okay with that, it's okay. And I did end up beveling the edges and stamping these. I did not record that. I just wanted to stay in the moment and enjoy it. Plus, I wanted to listen to music on my phone. So I couldn't listen to music on my phone if I was also recording. But I did use my customizable biscuit stamp that I got from Amazon to stamp the sides, coconut free, just so people know if I'm at a market or something, they can see it right away. Like, hey, this is coconut free. That's really cool. So here in the light of day are the pictures. I'm so happy with how this batch turned out. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, my name's Martha. I'm the owner and operator at Blue Haven Soapery. You can find my items at bluehavensoapery.etsy.com.